Minister, we've just passed the second anniversary of the tragic loss of life in Rescue 116. And the second interim report, which you promised me would update us on the progress made to date, actually didn't say anything. It was basically blank, and I'm wondering, in the context of the fact that the first interim report highlighted how an audit in 2010 by the ICAO observed that while the IAA had established a mechanism for oversight of search and rescue coordination, the Department of Transport had established there was no effective oversight being carried out for those entities for which it was responsible. So I'm wondering, in that context, what is the progress with regard to this report, and when will it be properly published?
Minister Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Daly. We all sadly recall the loss of Rescue 116 in the early hours of the 14th of March 2017 at Blackrock County Mayo. And first of all, I again wish to avail of this opportunity in the House to offer my sincere condolences to the families, colleagues and friends of the 4 crew members who lost their lives: Captain Dara Fitzpatrick, Captain Mark Duffy, winch operator Paul Ormsby and winchman Kieran Smith. I'm also acutely aware that both Paul and Kieran remain lost at sea. I recall for the House that under international convention, European regulation and domestic law, the Air Accident Investigation Unit, AAIU, is the National Safety Investigation Authority for aviation accidents and incidents. While it is located within my department, it functions independently of me and my department. Regulations provide for investigations to be held in private and are confidential. The sole purpose of such investigations is the prevention of future accidents and incidents, and not to apportion blame. I can again confirm to the Deputy that, in line with its usual procedures, the AAIU commenced its investigation into the tragic loss of R116 immediately upon notification of the accident. The investigation has since published a preliminary report, AAIU Report 2017-006, published on 13th of April 2017, an interim statement, AAIU Report number 2018-004, published on 16th of April 2018, and a brief second interim statement published on the 1st of March. All these reports are publicly available on the AAIU website. I was advised of the status of the second interim statement into the tragic loss of R116 on the 28th of February 2019, prior to its publication on the 1st of March. As I previously advised the Deputy, no final report may be made to the Minister, made public until the draft report has been provided to interested parties for a 60-day confidential comment period, following which any comments received must be considered and responded to. In that regard, it is not possible at this time to provide the Deputy with a date for the publication of the final report. I would, however, note that it is in no way unusual for the report not to be finalised at this stage. It's important that the investigation be thorough, while also being as expeditious as possible, both to fulfil the national and international legal obligations on the Air Accident Investigation Unit and indeed out of respect for those who tragically lost their lives. For example, when the AAIU investigated ECITP, the metro liner which crashed at Cork Airport on the 10th of February 2011, the final report was published on the 28th of January 2014. For international comparison, the UK Air Accidents Investigation Branch investigated an accident involving a Super Puma helicopter, registration GREDL, which crashed in the UK on the 1st of April 2009. The final report was published on the 24th of November 2011.
Deputy Daly.
I'd like to put on the record that I actually think there is something very strange about this situation, and the Irish Airline Pilots Association, for example, have been raising for 10 years in 2017 concerns with successive governments and transport ministers regarding the IAA's effectiveness in fulfilling its safety, regulatory and oversight obligations. And we know that the first interim report into Rescue 116, published last year, highlighted a continuing lack of clarity regarding individual and collective responsibilities for oversight of all aspects of SAR aviation operations in Ireland. So what happened? In May of last year, Minister, you said you'd asked your officials to review current oversight arrangements without delay. Now, IALPA, which says it's been highlighting this for over a decade, said around the same time that they were seeking an early meeting with you to address these meetings. Did they get that meeting? In the first interim report, called on you to conduct a thorough review of oversight of search and rescue operations. In January, you said you'd initiated a review whose work was ongoing. Essentially, these issues have been raised since 2010 audit, but the gaps remain. Why has the review that you initiated not concluded? This stuff is incredibly urgent, and I have to say I'm incredibly worried about the lack of serious detail that's emerging.
Minister, 1 minute.
Yeah, I think that the Deputy merits an answer for that. The first interim statement about what I want to answer the question about what my department is doing on foot of safety recommends issued in the interim report, which is, I think, what she's addressing. The safety recommendation was that I, in quotes, carry out a thorough review of SAR aviation operations in Ireland to ensure that there are appropriate processes, resources and personnel in place to provide effective, continuous, comprehensive and independent oversight of all aspects of these operations. My department immediately set about commissioning a report by suitably qualified independent experts with strong international experience. The review process and the report itself was also the subject of peer review by various search and rescue entities in other jurisdictions. It was published on the departmental website on the 21st of September 2018. There was a follow-up to the report on oversight of SAR aviation, following publication of the AQE report on SAR aviation oversight. I committed to implement in full and without delay the 12 recommendations contained in the report. As matters stand, good progress is being made in line with timelines set out in the report itself.
There is something incredibly weird about all of this, and I certainly don't have the answers, but I am going to keep asking the questions. There are issues with search and rescue oversight in this state. Of that, I am absolutely clear. There are lack of clarity and gaps in terms of responsibility. Now, in terms of the IAA specifically, does the Minister think that the current corporate governance structure of the IAA is appropriate for good safety, regulatory oversight and enforcement? In particular, I'd like the Minister to comment on the following characteristics of the IAA. Are they good for oversight? Uniquely, the IAA, in terms of national aviation authorities, is not subject to FOI, it's not subject to the Ombudsman, it has a commercial mandate in aviation, it has the power to write its own statutory instruments without direct input from an elected body. Now, I am deeply concerned at the lack of an independent aviation safety oversight regime and the fact that the IAA has a variety of characteristics that would appear to me to work against it being effective and transparent. In the specific case, last point, Count Corla, of Rescue 116, there are issues around rescue and oversight. What I'm asking is, the IALPA, the pilots who are at the coalface of this, have been asking you these questions. Is it not about time you started listening to them?
Final response from the Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy, and thank you for your advice about meeting IALPA. I'll consider that in view of what you've said. In response to your question about the IAA, recommendation number 12 in the AQE report was to ensure that the IAA are involved directly by the IRCG in the aviation regulatory aspect of the contract with the operator, to ensure consistency in the application of relevant regulations and processes. I'm happy to report that the IAA and IRCG are engaging in regular discussions on this, and work is advanced in terms of identifying a more permanent mechanism to enable this type of engagement to continue in accordance with the recommendation in the AQE report. As Minister, I will continue to provide updates to the AAIU on the progress in implementing these actions. I committed to implement in full and without delay the 12 recommendations contained in the report, and as matters stand, good progress is being made in line with the timelines set out in the report itself.
We move on to the next question in the name